A ballerina vampire? Does that make her a vampirina? Hmm. My reviewer, Abigail. Let's go. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Parker's Couch. You know what to do. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Share with your friends. Make sure you're tuning in to the podcast weekly on all platforms, the Parker's Couch, and keep supporting the way that you do. And I will keep supporting you too. All right. So let's get into this week's movie review. You know, Tuesday is becoming my movie day. I get to treat myself to a nice old cheap film. Thank you, Landmark Theaters. And this Tuesday of this week, I saw Abigail. Yes, the ballerina vampire. I know you've seen the trailers. It's probably about on its way out of the theaters right now. So I just caught it. So in this review, I will be talking about some scenes. If you haven't seen it, I don't think anything I'm going to share is going to really take away from the movie. So make your decision now whether or not you want to keep going forward. But I hope you do continue. Vampires are generally not my favorite genre of movie, but I think my favorite probably vampire movie is The Lost Boys and Let the Right One In. Too, that was a good one. Those are probably my top two vampire movies, and True Blood as a series. Like, who didn't love that? But I've seen probably just the majority of vampire movies that are out there. You know, it's a familiar genre within horror. So I was very curious about Abigail from the trailers, and you'll see by the end of the review whether or not I was disappointed or if it was a hit. Abigail was done by Team Radio Silence. If you aren't familiar with Team Radio Silence, they are kind of like the big thing in horror now. You got Matt Bettolini Open and Tyler Gillett. They've worked together on the VHS series, on Ready or Not. They've done the last couple of Screams and those reboots. And so they are making an impact here within the horror genre. So they are directing this movie. You have writers in Stephen Shields, who doesn't have that many works and stuff behind him. So this was a big project for him. And you have Guy Busick, and he has worked with Team Radio Silence on some of those past projects and everything before. So familiar territory there. The cast. So we have Melissa Barrera. You might be familiar with her from the Screams franchises. So she's been in the reboot of Scream as the lead there. She was also in The Heights and Carmen. You might remember her from that as well. So she may be a familiar face to you, but her character was known as Joey in the movie. And she was the kind of moral center, if you will. You know how every horror movie kind of has that moral center character, and she was that for this movie, supposed to be. So we knew her role loud and clear very well. Then you have Frank, who ends up being kind of a nemesis to Abigail. Well, not to Abigail, I'm sorry, but you can say to Abigail too, but who ends up being a nemesis to Joey there, Melissa's character, as well in the movie. But you might remember Frank from Downtown Abbey. He's been in Beauty and the Beast. He's also done The Boy and the Heron, and a few other projects here. Gaslit, Central Park, a few things there. So he may be a familiar face for some of you as well. Then we also have Alicia Ware, who plays Abigail. And Alicia, she has been in Matilda. If you saw Matilda, that's her. Matilda, the musical. Also in Wicked Little Letters. I haven't seen that one. I did see Matilda, and she was in the movie Don't Leave Home as well. Little button star here that we have in Miss Alicia Ware. I'll go ahead and tell you, like, her playing Abigail, I thought she did fantastic. She was a fantastic character. And I back up to Frank. Frank, his character, while Melissa was the moral center, Frank was the one who would break all. He's the one that you have to watch out for in the movie. He's going to break the rules. He wants to be in charge. He's kind of that guy of the film. Then we have Rickles, who is played by William Catlett. He's been in some familiar things as well. 1001. That was a really good film. He's in Constellation, which I have not watched yet. That's an Apple TV series, but I hear it's pretty good as well. And he had an episode in Lovecraft Country, and he's in Black Lightning. And he is kind of the quiet guy where you wonder what the hell is going on in your mind. He's like that secret assassin where he could be a serial killer or something, and you'll never know. But yeah, he's that quiet type in the film. Then we have Sammy, who's played by Catherine Newton. And you might know Catherine Newton from Euphoria. She's in that. She was in Big Little Lies, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Pokemon. She's been around in a few things, Freaky there. So she's a known face as well. And she's giving you the rich girl, like, why are you here? What are you doing here? But she's also the tech kind of person as well. She's a whiz on the computers and knows how, which is relevant for the type of business that we get into that they're in. But she plays that kind of character. Then we have Peter, who is the muscle of the group, and that's played by Kevin Durant. And he's known for X-Men, Wolverine. You might know him from that. I Am Number 4. Remember that movie? Robin Hood, Wild Hogs. Like, he's been a Pantheon. He's been in quite a few things, a quite big resume. Lock and Key. I do enjoy that series, Lock and Key. I wonder if they're making a new one or not, or if it's done. Who knows? But he's been around as well. Wu Assassins. And so he, like I said, he is the muscle of the group. Then we have the late Angus Cloud. We know him from Euphoria as well. And he was also in Freaky Tales and Your Lucky Day. So we know the tragic end to his life, but we did get to see him in this film here. And he plays the kind of character I guess you would expect. Very spacey. No, this is the one, I guess, who could truly be a serial killer right here in the movie. But he's kind of like that spacey character. It seems like he's done a ton of acid or whatever has been there. And he is the driver of the group. He's kind of the getaway guy. I mean, then we have Giancarlo Esposito, who plays Lambert. And he's definitely well known. He's been in things like Breaking Bad, Usual Suspects, The Jungle Book, Do the Right Thing. If you go back, those are some of the most well-knowns, but there are a lot of other ones. He's in The Gentleman, Moon and Girl, Devil Dinosaur, Harley Quinn, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Godfather of Harlem, Euphoria as well. The Boys, love them. I love The Boys, love that series. He's in quite a few things that you would recognize him for. And he plays Lambert, who is the mastermind behind everything that's going on in the movie. So he's the caretaker type role, and he's used to playing that kind of role, like someone in control running the show. And last, we have Matthew Goody, or Matthew Good. I'm not really sure how he pronounced his last name. But he was in Stoker, The Imitation Game, Watchmen, Chasing Liberty. You might be familiar with his face from some of those things. And also The Kingsman. That's a really good series. I do enjoy The Kingsman. But he plays the father to Abigail. So he's the vampire father. And we don't see him that much in the movie. He's talked about a lot. He's an integral part of the story and the plot, but we don't see him not until the end of the film, where you get his presence as Father Vampire. So the movie kicks off and we see Abigail dancing and doing her ballerina thing. And we have the team of six who's plotting, this next job that they're hired for. And eventually you get to them kidnapping Abigail back at the house. And you kind of see this stuff from the trailers, what's going on. The trailer gives away a lot of the movie. And as they're getting ready to kidnap her, they didn't realize that it was going to be a little girl that they were taking. So, of course, Joey, with the moral center, starts having a little second thoughts here, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is a girl. Nobody told me that this is a little girl in this job. But Frank is like, we getting this job done. We are here. Now there is a part in here I had to go back and see, but I thought Frank got bit by Abigail right here in the beginning. And he shows his hand and stuff in the car and stuff, and he was ready to knock Abigail out, but then Joey stopped them from doing it, Miss Moral Center, after she bit him. But I was wondering why he didn't kind of turn like then at some point or whatever. But we'll get to all that stuff later. But I have to go back. Maybe he wasn't bit and he was just cut or something. But anyway, so they kidnap Abigail and they end up, long story short, they end up bringing her back to this house that is just a house tailor made for vampire killing. And that's where they meet Lambert. And so you got the team of six that is there. And they have Abigail handcuffed and tied up and blindfolded. Lambert instructs them all like nobody goes by real names. Make sure you know that. And he ends up giving them names. They're all named from people of the Rat Pack, which is kind of giving you symbolism right there. Like, oh, okay, they're about to be literal rats for this vampire right here going on in some game in this house. And they're kind of setting that up through the dialogue as they're talking there. And he lets Joey know that she is the only one who can go in the room and deal with Abigail and talk to her so that she only knows one voice. Well, of course, Miss Moral Center goes in there and she takes the blindfold off, she takes off the handcuffs, and she's just all distraught and everything because she has a kid herself and we got this kid locked up here. And I'm like, oh, Miss Morrow, why are we doing this right now? Why are you taking these cuffs off this girl and taking off this blindfold and doing all this stuff? But anyway, so she does all that and Abigail starts working as vampires do. One of the things vampires do is like mind control, and they do these things and they play these games and know how to really make you think certain thoughts. So she's starting to play her game on Miss Joey as this desperate, oh, poor little child right there from the beginning. And so Lambert tells them they need to stay there in the house and wait, for the next move or whatever's coming down the pipe. Because the idea was that they were kidnapping this girl for ransom because her father was known to be wealthy, but they had no idea who the little girl was or who the father was. And it was said that they would each be awarded $7 million apiece. So that's why they were doing this job, just for ransom for the kid. So while they're all there waiting, and everything, and they're having all their drinks and stuff, then they start playing the little game. Angus character, he starts to try to read everybody and let them know he's like, I'm a great reader of people, so I can tell everybody about their lives. And he goes around. And then you got Miss Joey. She's like, oh, you got it all wrong. And then they're like, oh, can you do it better? So Frank goes and offers $100. And it's like, I give you $100 if you could tell me about me. Well, of course, Miss Moral Center goes around and she reads the whole damn room. And she lets everybody know who they are and what they were in their past and all that, from Frank being ex cop to everything. So she just goes down and tells him like it is. But he's like, look, you ain't getting off the hook. I know who you are. I know a junkie when I see him. And so she used to be this former junkie and all this stuff. So you see all this tension, and this is all kind of to build tension between Frank and Joey, which is going to be relevant for the story as it goes forward in this movie. Joey is also having conversations with Abigail. Now, Abigail, this is whenever they had that freaky comment in the trailer, if you saw it, where Abigail is like, I'm sorry for what's about to happen to you. So when they're having that conversation and she tells Joey that, of course, Joey kind of looks disturbed and freaked out. And she's talking to Frank like, yo, who is this kid? Who is the father? Do you know? And they're like, we can't say, we don't need to know, and blah, blah, blah. I don't want to know. And she's like, well, the kid indicated that something is going to happen that might be potentially dangerous for our lives. So we might want to know who we're dealing with. So Frank takes it upon himself to go and investigate, not telling anybody, whenever, Abigail was supposed to, not Abigail, but Joey was supposed to be the only one going into the room. He didn't know she was not blindfolded and all this stuff. So of course, when he sees that, he goes crazy and is freaking out and is about to shoot her and all this stuff because it's like, did you see me? Did you see me? Did you see my face? Da 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 da. But anyway, she ends up telling Frank who her father is, and she says this name, and Frank freaks the hell out. And he goes downstairs. He's like, I'm out of here. I'm packing up. I can't take this no more. Y'all do whatever you want, divide up my money, I don't care. And everybody's like, what's going on? And so eventually they hear the name of who it was. So apparently her father, the name that he's going by is known as this big time criminal boss who like kills people. And it's like this freaky story of how three of his top lieutenants were killed in such a vicious way with their like heads decapitated and all these different things going on. And they were like guarded at a door in a hotel room. So the only way in was through the front door up 23 stories in a hotel. So there's like, how did this happen? So there's like, it's all these kind of crazy stories around this guy, and they don't want to be a part of this. It's not worth it. So the team then devises a plan to like, let's go around the house. Let's make sure things are secured. Let's make sure, whatever, no one can get in, da 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 da. So they separate and everybody's kind of doing their thing or whatnot. And this is where the fun begins. Now it takes a little while. It is a little slow burn. It starts off with excitement. Then there's a slow burn building the story, building the characters. So you get a good kind of depth of what everyone is or what's happening, but then the killing starts to begin. But it's a little tricky killings. Killings start happening. I'm not going to tell you all who dies. I'll tell you how the death scenes go. So we got a decapitation. There's a head and that rolls off a body. You know, we got some mauled up face, and I don't even know how to describe it. Just like a wild animal got to one of the characters and tore him up. We have just blood splatters going out, good old classic vampire biting. We got a vampire turning. Maybe two people get turned. I don't know. There's some turning going on and some killing that way. There's bodies exploding. There's quite a few cool death scenes and cool blood scenes. There's one that's more towards the end that's quite gory of one of the characters I would say is being turned into a vampire, and it's pretty how they did it. It was pretty good. I like blood and gore and the way the blood kind of comes gushing out in that scene. That was pretty cool how that happened. So there are some classic kind of death scenes in there. So I would say as they start going around the house and they're separating and they're now waiting and they're doing their thing, and of course they're on their own. So one of the characters meets their demise first, and that character is discovered, and everybody's like, "What is going on?" And whenever they find out that, they try to break out the house, only to find that the house has been locked down. So it's like, oh my gosh, this is a trap. They're starting to question Lambert and all these things. Like, what is going on? What is happening right now? So this is whenever the game starts to begin, and they go back up to Abigail and just to check on her. And she's still like playing her game, like, I'm good, da 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 da. Like, no one's in here. Like, hello. But so then they split up and another character meets their demise. And at this point, whenever two go down, they're like, what is happening? So they go back to Abigail. And Abigail, this time they're like, no, we are in here. And actually, Peter, they're like, we're gonna bust in and like hurt this girl because something is going on. So he goes in to start trying to do his job to do that. But we got Miss Moral Center that's stopping him, and it's like, no, 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 you're not gonna do this. You're not gonna touch her. And she is fighting, trying to fight them all off from hurting Abigail. And while this is going, Miss Abigail is slipping out of her cuffs, doing these things, and you got Catherine's character, Sammy, is like, guys, while they're fighting, she's watching Abigail in the background. Now, I did have a question here on this part where this scene is going on. And this is where Abigail is about to reveal herself as a vampire. If you've seen the trailer, you kind of seen that part. But I'm like, how did she get back handcuffed? Because the homegirl took her handcuffs off, and I don't remember somebody else putting handcuffs back on her, unless I missed something. I have to go back and see, but that seemed to be a continuity little issue here for me because I was like, why is she slipping out of handcuffs? Her hands should have already been free. But anyway, and I think her legs were in cuffs. So maybe she was slipping out of her feet out of the cuffs, and I didn't notice that. And I thought it was her hands. I would have to go back and see because that could have been it because I think her feet were still handcuffed. But anyway, she slips out and she's doing her vampire thing. And they like turn around and look around like what's going on. And then her face changes and she turns into this vicious vampire and she jumps on Peter Boy. She jumps on them and she's going at them and trying to get some bites. And they're freaking out and, fighting her off. And they end up getting out and closing the door. And now the fun begins. Everybody's like, what is going on? It was like, we didn't know we were kidnapping a vampire. What is happening? So when they devised their first plan, they have a disagreement about their first plan. And so you got 3 now of the 4. They decide to try to do like classic vampire stuff. Go find some garlic, get a steak. Peter has his cross on his neck. Joey's like, I'm sitting this one out because this is not gonna work. Not gonna work at all. But so they go up and they end up finding the Miss Vampire because they hear the music. She's playing music and she's dancing again, doing some ballerina with a dead body. Yes, Miss Abigail. And finds them in the room, and let's just say she f's them up. She just is having fun. She's not trying to kill them right now at this point. So then they go back downstairs running in agony. So here's Miss Moral Center. It's like, okay, are y'all ready to do my plan now? So they devised this plan. This is where it's always like this in the movies, right? Where you got somebody talking about, let's split up. Why the hell are we splitting up? So here we got Miss Moral Center, like, oh, I know what can put her down. Because in that scene, Frank shot her in the head upstairs. And of course, that doesn't do anything for a vampire. And they see her get back up and that wound heal. And that's whenever they really freaked out. And he's like, well, what we gonna do? You saw nothing can stop her. But whenever they kidnapped the girl, they had used a needle or whatever to put her down to sleep. And that worked effectively. So here go Miss Moral Center. Let's go ahead and use this needle. And we had split up. Use our comms, and whenever she's close to you, holler out, and I'll come running with the needle. It's like, okay, yeah, you will have the only weapon that's going to actually put her down while we put our lives at risk. Why are we not all walking together and just being together in the house at this point? And then, whoever has the needle can just try to stab the girl. So you know how this is going to go. When we get to the point where they all get to Miss Abigail, of course, things don't go as according to plan, and it's not that easy to just stab the needle in her. So that was a nice little scene too, as well, of the fight sequence and all the action taking place. But they end up capturing Abigail, and they lock her in this cage and waiting for her to wake up. In my head, I'm like, yo, she's a vampire. I mean, she could turn into a bat. She could break out of this cage. She could do whatever she wants to do. Like, I don't understand like how y'all are gonna get her out of here. So one of the characters was bit by Abigail whenever they were fighting her in that scene. And now they're wondering if they're gonna turn into a vampire. Abigail's like, maybe. This movie was filled with some comedy. It was a mix of comedic elements that had some good timing. Some of it dragged on a little bit, slightly, but for the most part, I thought it moved pretty well. And of course, Abigail ends up busting out that cage. And then they have a brilliant idea to split up again and go look for a power source to go ahead and reverse everything done. But you remember, somebody was bit. This was a good scene. whenever Abigail starts working her magic to turn her victim that was bit by her. And that was really cool. That's whenever Abigail started giving some Megan. She started giving you the Megan flavor with her little dancing. And at this point, the person that she was with was toast. There was no chance of them surviving at this point when they're stuck off in this old corner of the house somewhere in the darkness. Yeah, it was over. And of course, Abigail tries to lure the rest of the one and keep working her magic through her new pet, but it doesn't go as quite as planned. And so that person meets their demise too, as well, in a splattering way that was magnificent. But now we're down to three. We got Abigail and two other characters here that are left, which you already know Miss Moral Center is one of them. Like you know that's going to be one of them. So we're here, and then this is whenever some twists start to happen. There's a door that opens, and they end up following it, and there's a secret passage back there. And someone is back there in the control rooms, manning everything. You might be able to figure out who that is. I'm not going to say who that is, but that person is a vampire themselves. And within this story, there are revelations that are made. Like whenever they have Abigail locked up in that cage in those scenes before, Abigail starts to reveal secrets and why everyone is here. She's like, "You think y'all are all here by chance? I brought y'all here." And she marches down and lets each one of them know what they did and why they're here. And this is a game for her. She just like playing with her food, you know, basically. So this vampire decides to offer a chance for one of the remaining two people in the house. Offer a chance to join him and take down Abigail. Well, somebody does take him up on that offer, but only to double cross him and set up an epic final scene here, final battle between two vampires and Miss Moral Center. And then there's things that happen because Miss Moral Center and Abigail's relationship, there was some genuine elements there, and there were things that were said, revelations made that connected them. There's a nice bloodbath for your life going on here with this all out fight. I just had questions though, because I was like, how's this new? I do remember from Vampire though movies before. I think whenever you're first bitten, it's like you're like super strong or something, but it's like this young energy and you don't have the experience to last. So it's a mix of all this stuff because this new vampire is like crazy strong and they're doing work. And then Daddy Vampire shows up, and then that becomes a thing. As far as the story goes for the film, I feel like it was a solid story. I felt like it was different, a unique way of kind of doing a vampire story. It was kind of cool to kind of see a kid vampire too doing all this work and everything. There were some parts that were a little mundane and kind of there in the story. You kind of expect that with horror films a little bit. I feel like horror films have been really very hit or miss lately, but it's been a lot of misses. But I feel like we on a more recent trend, I feel like they've been getting a little bit better. Like we're starting to come out of this like bad kind of type of horror movies that were going on for a while. So for the Parker's Couch rating out of 5, we do wine glasses here. I'm gonna give it a 3.5. It's gonna get 3 full wine glasses and then a half full for me right there. Because it was solid. It was a good film. I enjoyed it. It had some gory scenes in there, like some really good killing scenes. There was just a few slow parts, and with vampire movies already not being my favorite kind of genre, like it didn't like excel where some of those other vampire movies did. However, I do think it's a movie worth watching. It is enjoyable. It's one that you can sit back and enjoy. I don't think you're gonna jump. I laughed with some of them, and I was like, I thought some things were cool. Like nothing really got me jumping out of my seat, but there are some suspenseful kind of parts and stuff to it. So enjoy Abigail. 3 glasses of wine and then a half. Thank you for watching the Parker's Couch. Who knows what I'm gonna see next Tuesday? But come back Wednesday and find out what I'll be reviewing next. See you next time, Tater Tots.